Hello, everybody. What is going on? And welcome to another episode of Huskers Live. We're going to let some people pile in here, but we got a lot to go over. Some, good comments, some bad news, some really bad news, actually, but we'll dive into that a little bit. I may try to quell some concerns, maybe, but possibly not. I'm also going to dive into PFF's power rankings for the college football season as well, if I have time. See where they rank Nebraska in terms of their projections, where they think Nebraska's strengths and weaknesses are, and where Nebraska is in their power rankings. And I'm going to tell you, we're probably not going to necessarily agree with it. So I'll get into that a little bit, but first things first, welcome everybody into the live stream. If you are new here, please consider leaving a like. Drop your comments throughout the show. Let us know, what you think, and drop your questions. I want to answer some questions here. Any questions y'all have at a fall camp so far, just go ahead and drop them here. Questions about the open practice, things like that. Just go ahead and join the conversation, and I'll be sure to put y'all's comments up as we go. So let's go ahead and just dive right into the biggest news, of course, is the Teddy Prohaska ACL tear. Okay. With Prohaska, this has been something that he's dealt with in the past. Previously his left leg, now his right leg. And, he's had other nagging injuries, shoulder issues, things like that. And, on my Broderick show, I believe it was my Broderick show, one of my tackle film studies, I was talking about the height being ideal, right? And if you look at your average NFL tackle, right, they're around 6'3", 6'4", but what they really have over height is rangy arms, right? They have really long limbs for leverage and be able to get out and reach those guys coming around the edge. But with height, it's a different thing. It's much harder. You have a higher center of gravity. It's harder to keep your balance. You do have the long, arms that come along with it. However, you have guys that can sneak under your arms. When you're 6'10" and you're towering over some of these guys, you have guys that can sneak under you. It's also hard to leverage your power blocking down. It's one of those things where it's like you want to get kind of into the chest of a guy, and so these things like this, and just you being taller, being more susceptible to lower body extremity injuries just from the height alone. We see it all the time with tall Yao Ming. Hey, he was 7'6", of course, but foot injury after foot injury. It's just something that comes along with, being in the process. So 6'10", 6'9", that's taller than your prototypical average tackle. And the numbers, I can't remember exactly the numbers. I can't remember of 6'4", 6'5", 3 and the weight numbers, but believe it or not, that is something that is very much something the scouts look for when even pulling in some of these guys. I've talked to a guy who was a scout before in the NFL, and that is something they pay attention to. So it's highly unfortunate. And the way this line is, we don't have a lot of depth. And I know we've talked about the development, of course, and a lot of people are still, the jury's still out on the offensive line. And I'll go over what we can project to potentially replace him with here in a little bit. And it's just not good on the depth end. And there's a huge disparity between, especially at the tackle position, between the guys at the top and then the guys who are still coming along. So one thing I will say, it is, this is something that Nebraska had to go through last year, losing the entire left side of their line dang near, as the season went along, and guys got better, guys improved. But this season, of course, with Raiola being there and coming out of the left side, especially, you want to protect him. And so that's why this is majorly concerning. And, but let's go ahead and talk about some of the replacement. It's going to be, has to be Turner Corcoran. That is just the answer. Gatula, will be probably the backup, but Gatula, he's young. He's got a lot to learn, and it's really hard to come in and be a high level, player and lineman in your true freshman year. It's one of the positions that I think is the hardest position, outside of maybe quarterback, to come in and be able to, come in and be able to play at a high level as a true freshman. I went through the statistics a while back of 2021, 2022, and 2020, just kind of looking at those numbers and kind of seeing how many of those guys have productive snaps within their first few seasons. And it was very, very small amounts. And then the ones that did usually had to step up in an injury replacement and or were a guy that was just a absolute great talent. But you're talking maybe 3 or 4 of those guys with meaningful time played in their freshman year. And so that's just something that, with the line especially, that's where depth becomes very scarce, because at other positions you can kind of fill in the gaps a little bit easier than you can at the offensive line, but the offensive line operates so much as a unit. But we'll see. Kind of, I trust Raiola in kind of coaching this line. We'll see. Hopefully, Corcoran can make some improvements, and he can prove a lot of us wrong, and he can go out there and he can be productive and consistent, which we all root for. But at the same time, we got to understand that, offensive linemen are going to get banged up. They're going to get nicked up. They're going to get injured. So it's going to be really preserving that left tackle spot. Hopefully we don't have to go deeper on the depth chart. There's guys who can move around. There's guys that played tackle, at other spots. A lot of these guys can move around this line, but it's some of these guys that have played tackle before didn't necessarily play at a high level, and it's something they haven't played in a while. And so, yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how they navigate it and how the depth chart looks at that position now. But very scarce, very scarce. And I would love to have a glass half full outlook on this, but this one's really hard to have a glass half full outlook on it. The one thing that you can hope is that this line plays enough as a unit, and also, having Raiola behind them, having a quarterback who can make their life easier, having a guy back there who you trust that is going to stay in the pocket, when he needs to, and his tendencies, having a good quarterback back there that can actually, stand in the pocket, put a ball down the field. It's going to take a lot of the stress off of the offensive line, which could be another factor that helps, especially something that they didn't have last year. But you got to think that they are going to want to do, the way this offense is going to run. What it sounds like is they're going to be doing a lot of, short intermediate stuff as well, set up the deep ball. So we'll see how they work around this and kind of base the offensive scheme to put the line in the best position to succeed. So, but coming this late in the process, it happens, but it's unfortunate that it happened at this position of all positions. So, the starting line right now is pretty much probably solid set, unless we see any other movement, between what the coaches have seen, behind the scenes that they think may be able to shuffle these guys around or shuffle another guy in. But Corcoran, probably at left tackle, Justin Evans at left guard, Ben Scott, you got Micah Mazuka, and you got Bryce Benhart. So that's going to be the line. Again, it is a line with a decent amount of experience. Even guys like Justin Evans got a ton of experience last year starting. So, he's got that under his belt. And like I said, was one of our better, I believe, pass blockers. It was our highest rated pass blocker. I believe it was a pass blocking. But yeah, so we'll see how this comes along, but it'll be interesting now to follow this and see what comes from it. But it's looking like that's the starting line, and we just got to hope that line is preserved as much as possible. So, but that is the nature of the beast, unfortunately. But the one thing about this team, again, they took these lumps last year and they've overcome, so it's not something that they haven't dealt with before. It's not something that these guys can't, get guidance from, and you're gutted for Prohaska because he's dealt with this before, and, just being the other knee, and it's gutting for him, being this close. And Matt Rule was talking about how fired up he was and how ready he was for this season. And, he's just, it's unfortunate. And I just feel bad for him overall, but Yeah, that's the big leading news there with Prohaska. Of course, we've seen that, but just wanted to kind of give some ideas. But someone's going to have to step up. One person is going to have to really play above their means this season for that left side of the line to play at a high level, and it has to play at a high level with some of these defenses we go against. Iowa's going to have a very, very good defense this year. We're going to need to be able to protect Raiola at all costs. But again, I think there's a situation here too where Raiola makes the offensive line play a little bit better. They can run this offense in a little bit of a different way, and they can, disguise some of his weaknesses if the personnel are in place. But overall, I was feeling pretty good about the line coming into the season. The depth was another thing, but this is what happens. It's part of football. You adapt, you overcome, and they're not feeling sorry for themselves in that room. So Matt Rule's going to have a plan. He's going to come out here, execute it to the best of his ability, and that's all we can do. And we got to be rooting for Corcoran to really have figured it out. So yeah, not good news there. You don't like to start it off with that, but let's move over a little bit to the defensive side of the ball. Let me get into some of your comments here. Hit the like button. Yeah, appreciate it, Justin. Appreciate you hopping in here as always. Hasn't Prohaska already torn an ACL? Yes. Yeah, he tore the opposite ACL last time. Jackson stepping in here as always. What's going on, Jackson? Appreciate you hopping in. Hope all the best for Prohaska. Hope he can make it back to the field. Yeah. It's gut-wrenching for him. NFL tackles are like 6'6", whatever, NFL center. I mean, the point being that, and I'm looking at statistical historical data, by the way, including up to the present, but the point being 6'9", 6'10" is too tall. Like it's a tall offensive lineman, and that's not, it's just the way the body works, the mechanisms of the body. It's harder to block. Like you want to be able to get your hands up into the chest of a guy. It's harder to get your hands up to a chest of a guy and really, really kind of power through him when you're that tall. Again, you're punching down as opposed to punching out. And when you're punching down, you're going to lose your power just by nature of the beast. So my point stands. Who's next in line? Yeah, it's going to be Corcoran for sure. Toner. Yeah. Anyone in here from Omaha? It's a good question. Any Omaha people in here? And also, who's going to be out? Let me know who's going to be at the Colorado game as well, because I'm going to be out there. So I'd be curious to, see if some of y'all are going to be out there, meet some people and stuff like that too. So let's go ahead and switch over to the defensive side of the ball. So we finally got to hear, long awaited from John Butler, the guy who's going to be coaching the other room here that lacks depth, of course, the defensive backs. And he kind of went into how this process came to be and just his mindset stepping in the building. And for him, it was one of those things where, he, just as Rule said, he didn't want somebody coming in here who's going to coach the guys without understanding what he's doing. He wants somebody who's going to come in here and learn the culture, learn the process. Now, John Butler had mentioned he had previous experience of learning or understanding some details of how Matt Rule built his culture because, of course, him and Butler, coached against each other many times before, both being in college, both being in the NFL. And so he asked some of the players, he had talked to some of the players too about, the processes and said, it felt right. Nebraska felt like the place he wanted to be, felt like this was the opportunity for him because he was spending his time enjoying being off from coaching. And then all of a sudden the ball's dropped here. And, he mentioned January, February is around the normal cycle of hiring, but this happened very late in the process. So he's in a position where he's coming from a 4-2-5. He's coached the 4-3 and 3-4, and he has to transition over to 3-3-5. And that was one of the main things I mentioned when he came on board is the 3-3-5. It isn't super common in the NFL. It's not a base defense. You'll see packages. But the thing is a 4-2-5, similar 5 defensive backs, you just got an extra down lineman. So in some of the instances, it's a very similar style of player. You'll see a lot of teams like, let's say, I believe Texas A&M runs a 4-2-5, right? And that's why you'll see Texas A&M, and Oklahoma State and those schools that run variations of 3-3-5, 4-2-5 kind of in on some of the same players recruiting. See these style of defense are recruiting specific type of players for their defense. And so he understands the type of player and what he needs to do with a 5 defensive back set and some of the versatility. It's just going to be learning the nuances because the playbook is completely different. It's a lot of fronts, and that's just because of the 3 down linemen. You have to find different ways to attack downhill and be able to stop the run with those gaps being there in the middle, and you having an extra, smaller guy back. But, the jack and other positions are there to really kind of help come down to run stopping, and that's why it's important for guys, Tommy Hill putting the weight on and stuff like that, to also be able to come down and be able to stop the run as well, because you need guys second and third level to be able to come down and play run stop. So he understands what it takes to kind of, you know, run a defense with 5 defensive backs, which is very important. I think it would be much harder if he was coming from a base 4-3 straight to the 3-3-5. But the thing is, he's been coaching, like he said, he's been coaching a long time. He will, figure things out. He will kind of as he goes, like he's going to really start to learn this stuff inside and out, and then be able to coach it a little bit harder. But the one thing that I do like is he did come in with the mentality of, even though he's done this for 30 years, and you can hear when he speaks that he is a go-getter and a grinder, right? And he's about business. But he trusts his coach. You could tell that he's confident in his coaching ability, but he would also mention how he's willing to come in and learn, keeps his mouth shut, and in his words, and learn from the guys that are here, and take in as much as he can from Tony White, take as much in as he can from even the players. The players are helping him also learn the culture, learn the buy-in, et cetera, et cetera. And we also got to hear from DeShon Singleton a little bit later, and I'll go into DeShon Singleton's comments as well, just so you can get a feel for the mindset in the defensive back room right now. But he had a good point. Half the defense is in his room, nearly. Yeah, half the starting defense nearly is in his room, with 5 defensive backs being on the field. And of course, like I said, the more defensive backs, the more flexibility you have. But right now, there's not a ton of flexibility. So I'm curious to see, because you got to think this is probably going to be his most difficult season, of course, with the defensive backs, with the lack of depth, and then also him coming into the process late. So, this will be a good litmus test and measurement, and he gets a little bit of a trial by fire here, coming in here with this defensive back room, and a lot of guys who can move to different positions, but the lack of flexibility due to Bly Hill being injured, and stuff like that. So, that is another thing that we'll need to work on, is just, making sure the defensive backs get healthy, and John Butler, doesn't have to go through the process of learning this out while dealing with all the injuries. But the nature of the beast is they're probably going to have for some time to time. And he's a guy who's been through the ringer. He's been through situations like that before. So he will keep his head. He will keep his composure. And you got to know that he has a plan, because all, we hear this staff talk about is just details, right? And preparation, structure. That's all this coaching staff and this team is about, is preparation, structure, doing the right things, right? And last year, Matt Rule had opened up about the fact that, he had never seen something like that with the injuries and the turnovers, right? So with that being said, Matt Rule even had a learning experience last year, but that was critical, and him being able to also be able to kind of, and the staff as well dealing with that. But, John Butler coming in, let's say, and dealing with that again, he has a good mindset now, and knowing, where to kind of deal with that mentally and how to kind of overcome that. So having a Rule there and having this staff that went through what they went through last season, I don't think they're going to be phased by a couple injuries here and there, just because the nature of the beast last year. I don't think we'll see that again. Hopefully not. If so, we have to question some things. But I don't think there's anything here that's, I saw somebody mention strength and conditioning. It doesn't have, this is a freak, incident. It doesn't have to come from strength and conditioning. It's an ACL tear. Sometimes freak accidents happen. Where I tore my right bicep, right? It was just throwing a light hook in sparring, right? And So sometimes it's not about that. It's not getting on, the nutrition or the strength and conditioning or questioning why all of the injuries. I mean, that is a question we have, but at the end of the day, we got to understand too, this one is more impactful because of who it is. And so, dealing with these injuries is something the staff is going to be able to do throughout the season. And like I said, it would be good for John Butler to get that kind of mentorship from these guys who just went through it last season at this university. So, but like I said, in the way he talks, you can just tell he's a grinder, he's a worker. And, in his words, he said, "This isn't my first rodeo. I've been doing this 30 years." He wasn't worried about, he said he wasn't worried about a car, wasn't worried about he's going to live. He's just focused on the job. And to me, that fits the mentality of who's already on this staff. And that is the reason why I think Matt Rule was confident in bringing him in. So um, he wants to grow with the people that he's here. He mentioned, before, because we were talking about when he was brought on, and I mentioned this in my video too, and he didn't want to get into it too much, right? But his a desire to be a defensive coordinator, he didn't want to speak on why he left Buffalo. I don't think he wants that to be a storyline. I don't think he wants this to be a storyline where he wants to come in and, like he said, be a placeholder for a position to potentially open up, because that's not guaranteed to him coming in here. And so he understands that. So I don't think he wants that to be the conversation surrounding him, because that would mean he would come in for the wrong reasons, right? He said he's worried about the people in this building. He's worried about, his job, and he's just enjoying coaching again. And I think with him coming in here and being a fresh mind and somebody who, has a ton of NFL experience to be able to mentor these guys is going to be big for their mental. And then, of course, as he learns and grows this defense, because it is a very complicated defense, we'll see more and more of the fruits of his labor pay off with his coaching and stuff like that. So um, it was nice to finally hear a little bit from John Butler. I think it was something that we've kind of been waiting on just to see, especially with the defensive back room being questioned, being so many questions like there is. But when talking about the way his hiring came to be, he said that it had to be the right fit in the right place, right? Because he was ready for the offseason. So there is an element there where that he's being authentic when he's talking about, it was an unusual time, and he's, kind of basically compartmentalized the fact that he's probably not coaching that year. And but he wants to get back in competing and making players better. But it's about, getting assistance from the supporting staff right now, which he said has been great. The personnel there are great. But he prefers to be back at work coaching and learning this system. So he's looking forward to coaching the players, coaching that room. Go into his comments a little bit about some of the individual players. Now, of course, we know about Tommy Hill and Gifford, right? And Tommy Hill, when talking about Tommy Hill, he said he reminds him of a lot of guys he coached before at a high level. Long arms, fast physical tools. We've talked about Tommy Hill's strength at length on this channel. But he said when he evaluated him, he needs to keep working and invest on himself, because there's still a huge growth opportunity, and don't focus on the draft or being tenured, and still on working. And it's a day-by-day approach. And that's the other thing that leads me to believe that, he is of the same mindset, and these defensive backs are going to be coached just as they were before, probably harder. And even DeShon Singleton, well, DeShon's coming off an injury, of course, but he said he noticed the fast pace immediately when he came in here. That was one of the biggest things that he noticed when coming in here. And then Gifford, talking about, Gifford just kind of fitting the mold of, is the DNA of Nebraska. He's a vocal leader, not afraid to speak up and hold people accountable, and he wants to bring people with him. And then we saw the potential. I'm not sure if y'all saw this, but when he was talking to the team and how he's talking about losing not being acceptable anymore. And he said he didn't come back this season to lose. He's going to do whatever he can to win. And DeShon Singleton had very similar things to say about Gifford. And to me, right, is it just me, or does it seem like Gifford is just so good, and we expect him to be so good, he's kind of flying under the radar in a lot of conversation this season, because the conversation's been heavily, around Raiola, rightfully so, and some of the other positions and stuff like that. But Giff, man, nobody had a bad thing to say about him. Nobody has, and you know these coaches. You know he spit the real deal on Tommy Hill and came out and praised Giff. So Giff is one of those guys that's different. DeShon Singleton says he plays like every play's on the line for him, and that he is just a corn husker through and through, plays with passion, and he motivates him to kind of play faster, play harder, be better, learn to fly to the football. And that's important because again, this defense wants to force more turnovers. And taking that back to Butler's, thing, because of course turnovers take all the pressure off the offense. And that was the one thing Nebraska couldn't do last year is force turnovers. 2016 was the last year Nebraska won the turnover margin or won the turnover battle and margin. It was also the last season Nebraska had a winning record. So those two things, of course, go hand in hand. We saw it last year. It was brutal. Yeah, understand that. But he said that the difference is making a ball hawking defense, play hard, play tough, and attack the football. And he wants guys that are going to be able to play loose, play free, play fun. But he's trying to reinforce these habits and reinforce, in the film room, these things become in second nature because, again, if you get tight and you start overthinking out there, you're not going to trust your instincts to be able to jump that route, or you're going to be a half second late, or you're going to be a half second early, right? And so that's going to be another thing to know here is how that develops in terms of these defensive backs attacking the ball, being able to go up and make a play. And the 3-5, you don't want to step in front of a wide receiver unless you can get two hands on the ball. It's a risky defense. It's a high risk, high reward defense. And the reward comes in forcing turnovers. And the defense did a very good job last year of still keeping the offenses from being able to break away on this defense and get huge gash plays and explosive plays. But they're going to have to start turning the forcing turnovers and really put this offense in a good spot. So it's nice to see that that's a focus, and that he said that's one of the priorities, of course, is just being able to punch at the ball and be able to time these balls, and that's something that comes along with ball skills as well. It's like ball skills aren't just being able to go up and get a ball. Ball skills are being able to time jumping a route, or even time getting back and getting your hand on a ball, or even recovering on a route. That's all ball skills. If you get beat on a route, knowing how to recover on that route without interfering, those are all ball skill things. So I'm really curious to see how John Butler kind of brings those few details along with this defensive back room and what we kind of see from them in terms of their play. So let me go ahead and get into some of y'all's comments here. Had a bad storm on Wednesday, lost power for 3 days. There's still people without power. Wow, that's crazy, man. That's unfortunate. Well, hopefully everybody is there's I don't know about any fatalities or anything. So hopefully there's none of that. And it's just, yeah, y'all get that back soon. But that's crazy. It reminds me of Texas whenever they had that freeze, and the energy companies had a freeze, and it lasted for like a week. Nobody had power because then another freeze came, and they were too busy the power grid shut down. They were too busy trying to negotiate, and they were busy trying to negotiate who was going to come in and work, to restore the power, and people were dying because of freezing. So like that stuff's no joke, especially in the middle of summer, when it's hot and stuff like that. So hopefully that gets resolved, and hopefully none of y'all are having to deal with that. What's going on, Moonbot? I appreciate you hopping in, the busiest guy on YouTube and all the streams. Unfortunately, Teddy hasn't played a full season right. He hasn't brought anything to the table. Not a big loss, just a situation for it's big in terms of the depth and the drop. He was the guy. He was the best guy for that position. And I had heard rumblings of potentially there being competition. There was a competition, and that helps those guys push each other. But we'll see. None of us know necessarily how Corcoran fully has looked this season, and another year under Raiola. Who's to say he can't come out here and perform really well? So, yeah, I still, and I'm not going to come out here and say he's going to play bad. I just think in terms of depth and that position in particular, it's a huge blow in regards to that, because we need kind of all hands on deck. We need to be able to rotate guys in there and just see who competition breeds excellence. So any loss right now on that line is a big loss. So, Ken, what's up? Hey, Justin, Coach BA, and I saw what Singleton was talking about. Dylan was very accurate on Saturday night. Yes, yeah. Oh, yeah, that's right. Y'all were out there at that practice. Anybody who else was out there at that practice, drop a comment and let me know what your thoughts. With Teddy out, maybe we can see Grant Bricks. I think we would see more of Gunnar Katula. Um, yeah, I think Gunnar Katula would be out there if we see any young guys. Tyler Kanak's another one, but I don't know where he's at in his process. So, and even throwing Gunnar Katula out there, somebody that young again, is very risky. Butler is a big improvement. Yes. Wonder who will be doing the field goal kicking, the punting. They got to significantly improve over what we've been seeing in the recent years. Yeah, the punting. The punting, I think, is the biggest. I know we got a question mark around the field goal kicking, of course, and they were saying guys, there was guys out there hitting 40 plus yarders. The other two kickers. I still believe in Alvano. I was, yeah, and I've brought this up many times before, but I think with Alvano coming in, and we know he can handle pressure based on, the fact that he was 5 for 5 in a state championship game and kicked the game winner from over 50, right? We know he has the leg, we know he has the ability. And when Matt Rule was talking about letting these players play through their mistakes and you get a confident player, I don't know if necessarily he is going to give up on Alvano in a season. Now, of course, it's probably an open competition, and whoever kicks the best, whoever proves himself the best is going to be the guy. And if Alvano can be healthy by the time the season starts, again, he was cleared from the groin injury, but it is a groin injury. So you have to be very, very careful about that, especially as a kicker, naturally. But with Alvano, and I've talked about this a couple times, where the weight of the world was on his shoulders in terms of scoring points for this offense. And with the amount of pressure that was on this team last year because of the turnovers and the mistakes, and everything was compounded tenfold. And Alvano got a lot of the blame. I mean, he wasn't accurate, of course, we know that. He missed some kicks very, very badly. But when kicking's a mental game, we talk about in baseball sometimes having the yips, right? And the yips is basically like, there's players who play at a high level. Altuve in the 2020 playoffs, right? Altuve always fields at a high level. He had his worst postseason in 2020. He was abysmal. It's probably the reason the Astros got eliminated. But that's not him as a fielder, right? He was tight. He was making mistakes, so he was thinking about making mistakes instead of just playing loose, relaxed, sticking to your fundamentals, just letting your body do what you've designed it to do. And kicking is very much about consistent mechanics and a process, right? And when these kickers get out there, they talk about icing the kicker. It's a mental game, right? So they get out there and they have to kind of compose themselves and be able to go out there and have to score points to help an offense that's not scoring points, and to help an offense that's not turning the ball over. And not only that, not getting you consistently into field goal range or in the best position. So I think I'm a little bit easier on Alvano because of that. But I think if Alvano can just come out there and just play loose, play relaxed, and stop thinking so much, I think Tristan Alvano is going to be very, very good. And so he's still my guy that I would love to see at kicker. Again, I could be completely wrong. He could come out here and be bad, but I just think I want to give him another opportunity because that was a very, very unique experience that he was in last year, especially for such a young kicker. So, but the punting, I don't know. Might have to do open tryouts like we did for field goal kicker under Frost. Bring the soccer team out there and let them kick some punts to see, because right now, this ain't it. And at the practice, we talk about playing loose, playing fun, playing free. That's a practice, right? That should be where you're playing loose, playing free, playing fun. So if he's, not punting properly, his mechanics it's shanking off his foot. He's not able to do that in practice. I'm really concerned for what we're going to see this season. So hopefully he had a bad day, and that's the extent of it. But based on what we've seen, that's gotta. The special teams right now, they have to get better all across the board. So, yeah, good question there. We're hugely high on GIF. We're dropping a video on Friday night. Awesome. So yeah, you'll go check that out. 7:30 over on Generation Red podcast over there. are our linebackers fast enough to cover Fedoni? Well, luckily they won't have to cover Fedoni, but in practice, I'm sure they do. The thing about linebackers in the 3-5, they tend to be, rangier type of guys. They tend to be more versatile type of guys. So the 3-5 is to basically get the speed to counter these modern spread offenses and the speed all over the field. It's to really kind of keep up with these shorter, faster guys by having that extra defensive back. And some of these linebackers have to play a more versatile role. And so usually the linebackers in 3-5 are going to be quicker, a little more, well-rounded in terms of being able to do a number of different things and have to do them well, because this is a defense where you have to be responsible for your job, and you don't always have somebody there to fall back on to have your back. And so you need to be able to do a number of things. You need to be able to cover. You need to be able to blitz, and you need to be able to stop the run. So these linebackers, have to be versatile, have to be quick. But the benefit of the extra defensive back also helps there, because you can move guys around, and you can find ways. To be honest with Fedoni, I think Fedoni's going to be hard cover. I don't care who you are. Fedoni looks like a grown man out there. So I think Fedoni will be hard cover as it is, but the linebacker core is very good on this team. And we got some guys who are rangy, who are good tacklers, who are fast. So we have a good enough, versatile linebacking group where I don't think speed will be too big of an issue. We'll see. Week 2 will be the real test, because there's athletes on that team. So week 2 will be a real test against Colorado. And that should show us where we stand in terms of just overall, speed and being able to keep up playmakers, especially at the linebacker position. So, Wilson, what's going on, Wilson? I appreciate you stopping in here. Wilson, of course, posting on his channel every day. So y'all be sure to go check his stuff out over there. Had a live stream yesterday, so occasionally pops in for live streams. So, yeah, y'all go check out what he's doing over there. Turn the bell notification on, so y'all can hop in his lives as well. What's up, John? So John Diadamo from our Michigan channel over there. Of course, y'all can go catch that immediately following this if you want to stay up to date with the Michigan. You can troll them about the cheating. I see they tend to like that. So yeah, you can hop on over there and troll those guys. Justin, looking forward to this upcoming new look of Big Ten. Always good on in for here. I appreciate it, Jim. Thank you for stopping in, man. I appreciate it. You're right, Justin. It sucked. Temps were in the mid-90s, had to throw all the food away, no casualties. Oh, that's good. That's good. I hate when people say, well, at least everybody's okay. But in situations like this, I think that's the biggest thing, is just making sure that everybody made it out all right. And hopefully continues to be that way. Hopefully people get power back, because that's never a slow day as a Husker fan. Yeah, right. Never a slow off season. There's always something. Want to know how Hufkin's doing. Hope he's acclimating well so far. So Hufkin is benefiting, and we can talk about Keona Davis, formerly Wilhite, as well, because those two were mentioned when talking about the benefit of these new coaches coming in here and being able to have secondary and tertiary coaches for some of these position groups, and how important they are going to be in helping guys like Hufkin and Keona, develop. And I think Hufkin, from the sounds of it, he's very much a learner. Like they mentioned how he's very much like, wanting to learn. Yes, coach, like takes feedback, very coachable and all that stuff. So, I think he's had to be that way, because, he started playing football in 2017, had a couple year break due to COVID, and then the next year off, and then still was able to play at the highest youth level in Germany. And, it was able to come over here and do a camp and land a scholarship at Nebraska. And so I think with a guy like that, you have to think that with the right coaching, especially coaching over here, strength and conditioning over here, that he's going to come along very well. It seems like he is just a pure athlete. He's got a ton of physical attributes that will help this team tremendously. It's interesting because they wanted to initially put him at O-line at tackle, but he performed so well on the defensive line that it looks like they want to keep him at the defensive line. So I think he'll come along. I just don't. He's too raw right now to expect him to have significant playing time this season. But Keona Davis, I'm sure y'all have seen his picture. He is stacked, over 200 pounds. He supposedly he looked really, really good out there. When people were able to watch him. So look out for his name too as we come up in, because we've known Matt Rule. He's not a guy who's going to just not play a player because he's a freshman or because he's an underclassman. If you come in here and do things the right way, and they mentioned this in terms of talking about people being vocal, if they come in here and do things the right way, they're going to get a spot, a chance, an opportunity to play. So they got to be ready to play. So but I just think Huffkin's a little too raw as it sits. But those two guys, haven't played football. Huffkin especially is we'll probably see more of him next season. So, but again, he's a grown man. He's 20 some odd years old, so he could come along quicker. John, I finally remember to hit the like button. Yeah, I appreciate it. Everybody, drop the like button. No, don't drop the like. Hit the like button. Don't drop it. I don't think that's what we want to do. This is the type of excitement like what we had when Jim Harbaugh first came back to Michigan. Oh, I love it. I love it. I love trolling y'all, but it is. I feel like it is much ado about nothing. UT boy, what's up? We got a Texas fan in here. I appreciate you stopping in. Speaking of Texas, just a quick little nugget on the Michael Terry recruiting. It does seem like Texas and Oklahoma. Wow. Texas and Oregon are still kind of in the lead. It seemed like his family supposedly has been reaching out to parents from other kids on the team, to parents of other kids on the team, and just kind of like asking them questions and stuff like that. So if that's any, sign of anything, it seems like those two teams are the front runners, which we expect Michael Terry to be a tough land, but who knows? Everything's being so kept close to the vest. We haven't heard any announcements from that. So Nebraska is still in that, but just wanted to give you all a quick update on stuff that I had saw and heard about in regards to his recruitment as well. So I'm a California from Nebraska. I'll be at the USC game. Go Big Red. Been a fan since '81. Awesome. Well, appreciate you being here, David. And yeah, I would love to go out to the USC game. I live in Arizona right now, so I would love to travel out there for that one. But I got to be here for the post games too. Beating Ohio and title took some time, but we got there. Automanelli and Hull looked capable, kicking quite a few 45 and 11 on 11 special team drills. Yeah, that's the thing too, though. But I just want it's hard to tell, right? Because again, when they get out there and they start getting those reps on the field, that's when we're really going to see it. And again, Alvano's been a full year in Matt Rule's offseason program, and we know how much he values that, and he's had a experience starting. The kicking competition is probably going to be throughout the season. I think it's going to be a short leash, to be honest. If it is Alvano out there and he comes out there and he starts missing, because Matt Rule did say he wants to give players an opportunity to be better, but that doesn't mean that he's going to hold their hand and babysit them if they are not improving. So it is something where, while I'm empathetic towards Alvano, he also has to know that he has to get out there and perform at some point. So, talent's one thing. You can have all the talent in the world, but if you can't come in here and perform, especially when the pressure's on, especially at a school at Nebraska, in year two, a season like it is, with a lot of eyes on Nebraska this season to take the next step, that's going to be a factor in this. And Rule's gonna have to have a little bit of a short leash when it comes to that, as much as I like Alvano. So Huffkin is just so buried in the depth chart, like his upside. He's at one of the deepest rooms, one of the deepest rooms on the team. It's going to be tougher in the stack. Yeah. Knighton said today he's still learning the playbook, slowing down the game. He's just way too raw right now. I could even be a little bit generous in saying a year. It could be longer than that. Like Wilson said, we have a deep defensive lineman room. It's just crazy the amount of strength that this has, and Terrence Knight and what he's done with this. But that's a good thing. The fact that Huffkin can come in here and he can learn properly, and he can really just kind of refine his skill set. I think that's what he wants more than anything, is to be able to come in here and not only compete, perform, but perform at a high level. But that's a position group that we're not concerned about. So you also don't want to run the risk of bringing him out there too early and maybe getting him, losing his confidence because he's like, I'm not getting this. But he brings up a good point with what Knighton said about learning the playbook. This is all like, not only is he learning the position and learning how to play with technique and learning how to, like, he's so raw. but he's having to learn one of the most complex and complicated defensive systems there is. And that's going to take a ton of time. So I think, I don't even know how much of the playbook he's in taking, because he's probably doing the playbook learning kind of on his own. And while they're at practice, they're probably working, like he said, slowing down the game, teaching him proper techniques and fundamentals. But this is where those extra coaches come in handy to be able to step off to the side with guys like these and bring them along quicker. So that is another element here of something we haven't had before. But Huffkin's got a bright future. He's got all the physical attributes. Like I said, he's super athletic, super long, super rangy, and ultimately he will have a place on this team. So I'm done with Albano Nico all the way. Listen, I don't blame people who think that way at all. Okay, who's going to punt it and not shank it? Well, right now, I don't think there's anybody on the team that can do this. Sure as heck ain't going to be me. I played soccer, but I still can't punt. Like you said, another video out of Ano needs to know that most field goals are to enhance the lead instead of help take the higher lead. I just think he needs, I just think he needs to understand that, like, the lack of, he needs to stop putting the pressure of the offense on himself, like the pressure of the offense not scoring. I just think he needs to learn how to just kind of reset and have a short mind as well. But being able to know that, like, you know, unless this offense performs, we're not going to win this game anyway. So, like, I got to just go out there and do my job, right? Focus on his job. He can't focus on what the offense is doing. He can't focus on what, potentially might happen on the next drive with the offense, or I might get a lot of chances or opportunities to kick a field goal. The sooner he does that, the better off he's going to be. And I don't think he's too far off from being able to do that, considering you can't be 5 for 5 at a state championship game, kick a 50+ yarder, ice water in your veins, and just lose that, right? So I think he's a kicker who is designed to have pressure on his shoulders, but it's a different level of pressure. I think that was put on last year, and to be honest, it wasn't expected for the offense to be that bad. So there are other elements that go into it. So yeah, a lot of stress on him. Needs to beat a bad Colorado 4-8 team first. Very true. I mean, UTEP first, but UTEP's in a transition year. A lot of guys are going to get reps against UTEP. Buschini wasn't very good Saturday night. I hope he figures that out, or Cook can be ready if needed. I just don't have a lot of confidence in any of our punters right now at all. But yeah, he wasn't. From what I hear, he was probably the low point of that. Son has a great channel. Yeah, he's doing great stuff over there. He's like I said, posting every day. His work ethic shows. So just keep on getting over there, supporting him as well. And we're gonna have some content coming up, and for y'all this season, a lot of fun stuff coming up. I kept hearing the name Keona Davis pop up, and I thought it was a walk-on. Found out quickly Keona Wellhite changed the last name to Davis. So somebody told me, told me, I don't remember, because I don't even know exactly when it happened, but I had gotten wind of that a little bit prior. That was the only reason I knew. Otherwise, I would have been like, who the hell's Keona Davis too? So everybody, all right, so y'all are on that same boat. All right. I'm glad I got a little insight there, because it wasn't I don't think it was a big announcement or anything like that. It's just like, is Justin Evans Jenkins just Justin Evans now? Like, I don't think I caught wind of that too. It's kind of like whenever Cam Taylor Britt, when he first came here, it was Cam Taylor. And then Taylor Britt was on the back of his jersey, for that first game. So that tricks us up a lot. A lot of these signees going to do a flip or even double flip after signing. I don't necessarily want to say that. I don't want to sell the guys who are committed to the team short, and assume that they're going to flip or double flip. I think there's a lot of things built in currently to the mechanism of this team, and that has people wanting to be here, because when they were talking about, the stuff today, they really do have a standard here of getting these guys ready for the NFL. What John Butler said when he came in and talked to this defensive back room was that some of these guys already had some of the same NFL mentality of guys he's coached before. And that comes through the process of what Rhule's doing. And people within the program, one of the reasons Giff and some of these other guys came back is they see in year 2, they see more than we do, of course, being in the locker room and all that, and they feel like this is the year that it's gonna take a jump. It's not just us as the fan base, but we had players that put their money where their mouth is and came back and wanted to be a part of that resurgence. And so you don't do that unless you 100% believe in the staff, believe in, the players around you, believe in the culture, the mindset. That's a buy-in we haven't had in a long time, right? And I think having, these guys here and stuff like that, and these recruits when they come out to visit and seeing, because they always talk about family. They always talk about environment and how close everybody is when they come off of these visits. I think people genuinely want to be a part of that. I think Rule recruits people, and he's mentioned this. He recruits people who want to be a part of the program and who he thinks are going to buy in. So I think that's why we won't necessarily see too many flips. Of course, we're going to see some here and there. NIL, you're going to get outbid and stuff like that. But I think the players who we want to be here will come. And I think the players that Matt Rule wants to be here, he'll get. And if they don't want to be here, then he's going to work with he'd rather have a 3-star who wants to be here than a 5-star who wants to come in and play a year and move somewhere else. So that's just kind of his philosophy. But yeah, I try not to get too little glass half empty on people signing and be like, well, it doesn't matter. They're going to not commit anyway. So Christian Jones recruitment is going to be so important for Nebraska after likely missing on Will Hawthorne. Yeah, that Will Hawthorne, that's highly unfortunate. I don't think anyone expects Huffkin to play. Just curious how a foreign player can transition to real football. It's tough, right? But especially, I think the biggest thing was him starting so late and being able to. But they have programs over there that kind of help, but at the same time, their styles are different. Of course, overseas in the talent level, the talent pool over there is different. So the speed of the game different, the strength of the guys are different. Huffkin used to be able to probably move people that he can't move because a lot of the guys he's playing against over there are very raw, unrefined as well. So the hard part is knowing just how far away he is. And that's something only the coaches know. So hopefully we can get some insight into Huffkin's process. But I think it's so early on in the process that they don't necessarily kind of like we're talking about, like he's not going to play this year. So I don't think it's something necessarily they're going to worry about talking about, or people are going to worry about asking questions on. But it is a good question. Hopefully we'll find some insight on that. But I did like how he at least mentioned that the amount of help that having that second coach is giving guys like him and Keona, because to me, that leads me to believe that he is progressing at a pretty good rate, because for him to mention those two guys and having the benefit of the second coach, that kind of shows me a little bit there that they are kind of seeing an improvement in him. Ivana needs to do his job. Don't worry about the offense. That's not his problem. Yeah, 100%. He needs to just go out there, focus on, tunnel vision on what he needs to do. Don't think about it. Go out there and keep your eyes down. Don't look at the crowd. Look at the field goal post. Do your steps, whatever you got to do. Do your routine and go out there, play loose, play free, play fun. Don't worry about making mistakes. If you're tight, your mechanics are off. You've got tight hips. You're not going to have the flexibility in your leg to be able to kick the ball the way you want. And that's going to lead you more likely to push or pull the kick, shank the kick, push it, whatever. And I think a lot of what we had on the team last year was a lot of thinking, especially at the quarterback position. I think that didn't help. And especially at that position, I think the quarterback position and that position are, of course, the two most mental positions in terms of having to perform at a high level. And yeah, so he's hopefully another year in this, but you got to think too, the way the offseason program is designed, right? It's another year of getting Alvano in a system where, he has dealt with and seen what it's like through this process to be hardened and do stuff that he doesn't want to do, and learn that mental aspect of it, learn the resilience aspect of it, because that's what they've been preaching and practicing throughout winter mat drills. Winter mat drills was about doing stuff that you didn't necessarily want to do. It's stuff outside of football too. During that time, talking about going to different, sporting events and even though you don't have to, going to those things, right? And getting points based on that. So I do know mental toughness is something that the staff has worked on significantly. So I do think we might sell him a little short just by not seeing him yet. So, but again, I'm rooting for the guy, just because I think we all want him to succeed because we know what kind of talent he has. My given name is Kenneth Michael Micone. Well, as whatever, pissed off my wife, anyways. Okay, I think you respond to somebody else in there. So, not specifically referring to Nebraska signings in general. Oh, gotcha. Yeah, 100%, 100%. And we are in a world now where you know teams will players will probably commit to a school to land more offers. We see that happen a lot where you know even Nebraska will be the first team to offer a player. I'm trying to drawing a blank on who it was that we offered, and then you know, oh my god, I'm drawing a blank. He switched from wide receiver to defensive back. He's a signing in this class. But anyways, Nebraska was the first to evaluate him at defensive back, and then I think it was maybe Minnesota jumped in, and so some of these guys will get offers or commit to school, and then they'll get noticed more, and that'll or they'll get more money out of it. So hearing the new QB transfer can sling it, it gives me hope as just in case. Yeah, and so here's my take on the Gramstead stuff, and I've kind of said this at length, but Gramstead, of course, is the better arm, is the better overall quarterback, but he's got a lot to learn, and he's got a lot of winning experience, of course. And they talk about the way he carries himself like a winner, and he's going to be a great mind for that locker room. But you have to think that Heinrich Harburg, not only with his leadership, but with his experience playing the quarterback position last year, and although he doesn't play it near as well or throw the ball near as well, he has a grasp and understanding of this offense inside and out. And they will have packages for him around the field. They'll have different things that they're going to use him on. But Harburg is most likely going to be your QB2 going in the season. It's no knock on Gramstead. He's just so late in the process. And not only that, you got to think like Harburg is one of the biggest and best leaders on this team. And that is also something that Matt Rule values. So, we're talking about the talent, we're talking about the arm talent, stuff like that. But, Matt Rule will put somebody who's less talented behind somebody who has put in the work, who has gone through and proven themselves in the offseason program. So that's another thing that Harburg has a leg up on. But again, it could be one of those situations where it's a Harburg or Gramstead. I just don't think Gramstead's quite ready. I think he has a lot to learn. But with his football acumen, with how smart he is, with how cerebral he is, how good of a player he is, he wants to be a coach. He's the type of guy that can pick up on things quickly, So I don't think it will necessarily be anything where he can't pick up on it, but I still think his primary role is to be a leader with some winning experience to be able to mentor, the young guys. And ultimately I think he'll become a GA and coach. So start winning. I think we'll see a lot of flips. He's learning curve for sure, but Gramstead looked good Saturday night. Yeah, that's what I've heard. I've heard a lot of good things about him. I'm worried about Buschini shanking more punts this season. Yeah, I think we all are. It's incredible to me how surprised Nebraska fans are about Buschini's poor performance so far in fall camp. People forgot he graded as one of the worst punters last year. Yes, he was. There's something about punters, inconsistent punters at Nebraska. I don't know what lately. I will preface that lately, because it seems like we can have a great punter in one season and the next season they're terrible and never get it back. So, yeah, Buschini hasn't been boom skinny in a while. So we hope he gets back to that. Not this fan, not me. I'm sorry, I don't know what the not me's are about. Foley will be gone after this season. Did he get hurt early last year? I'm sorry if I'm trying to remember where we're at in the process. Bring Bill Bush back. No, we don't. We need Bill back. We only moving forward. Camden Cook has got to push him. Heard some good things, but more consistent than Buschini. It's just a leg strength issue. Yeah. Camden Cook. Yeah, he's definitely, but at the same time, you want a guy who's going to, like be consistent. But at the same time, with the leg strength, it's less of an issue with wait, like you want more consistency than you want leg strength because, overall that's going to even out as we all know. So it'll be curious to see if Cook, but again, I think Bushini might have a short leash. I think you have to because we talk about return game, we talk about kicking field goals, but we understand how important punting is because that's what's going to set you up in good positions. I still think, as much as we talk about punting and return specialists, we don't really understand. We don't really talk about how important those are because we focus on the offense and defense. But both of those, of course, take tons of pressure off of those units. He's going to have to learn the playbook for starters. Yes, very much so. We are in Nebraska. We can't be giving these punters kickers around if they can't perform at high pressure moments. Exactly. But the thing is, you can't. Bushini's another story, but a guy like Alvano, he was a freshman. So at the same time, you got to understand that and take that into account. Like these guys are here to develop, right? And so it's not the staff's job to come in here and give up on them when they don't come in here year one and perform. It's about them getting on these guys, trying to build them up, letting them understand they made mistakes, but build them back up so they can come out and be a confident player. And that's what I hope, they do with him. Not sure if anyone remembers Tyrone Swoops at Texas. Yep. I remember Swoops. Yeah. I half my family's diehard UT fans because I'm from Texas. So the other half's Nebraska fans because they're all from Nebraska. So last time we had the best kickers for the longest time. Tech question: what kind of camera are you using? So I use a Sony A7C. Sony A7C, and I have a FE 1.8 20G lens, so a wide angle lens. So Sony A7C. Not cheap. I don't live in the past, different era of football. No, Wilson, we hate Texas around here. That we do. I am from Texas, but I'm a diehard Texas hater. I need to pull up there's a picture one time, just story time real quick. One time I got tickets. My sister went to UT. I got tickets for the Texas game in the student section because I sold programs and all my Husker gear, face painted. I had a Husker cell phone case, Husker socks. I was 15 at the time, and my sister was a student. So the way we get student tickets is I would sell the programs with her before the game. So I have a Longhorn little like colored vest over. I'm selling programs and red and white face paint and all this other stuff. It was pretty funny. But then there's a picture I'll have to go get it where I'm smack dab in the middle of the student section, and it's just like it's like Where's Waldo? All you see is my red and white face just sticking out of the crowd. So yeah, I walked into enemy territory at 15 years old, and that was an experience for sure. Texas fans, hey man, even when you're 15, Texas fans aren't nice. They're a little crazy out there. So talking Barney's going to be and the fact that we have a dedicated return specialist coach now, that's the other thing, not just fullbacks coach, but he's also going to be coaching the specialists, and that's going to be a big part of the growth of this team. And they're going to be, I expect, the kick returns and punt returns to be good and get much better as the season goes along. Of course, IGC. Another thing DeShon Singleton mentioned was Isaiah Garcia Castaneda being, we talked about his bulking up, but how much stronger he is. DeShon talking about when matching up with him, how much bigger and stronger he is. So look out for IGC this year. And with that being bigger and stronger, that means he's going to be less susceptible to injuries. So really excited to see what IGC brings this year. So another guy that's not being talked about a lot until recently. Not living the past. We always had a good kicker. Seems like hasn't been priority for a while. I don't think it's that. I just think sometimes you miss. It's really hard to go out there and find kickers. Like you can't expect to uphold the standard always of Alex Henry's, and the Browns. You can't always nail that, and you can't always expect a true freshman kicker to be Alex Henry and come in and nail 57-yarder at the buzzer. You know what I'm saying? Or not at the buzzer, but 57-yarder to take the lead, big Robert. Those type of things. So I just think there's a lot of things that went wrong last year, and it's easy to point the finger, but last year is last year, right? Let's try to reset, except Bushini. Bushini's was like last week where he messed up. So we can kind of reset that a little bit at the start of the season. But again, the leash is much shorter. The patience is much shorter. Can't come out in the UTEP game and be missing field goals. if you come out in the UTEP game and miss field goals, you can't have you on the field against Colorado. So it's a very short leash. And like I said, I think it's going to be potentially an open competition throughout the season until somebody really hammers it down. And but it's all about who gets the first shot. And we'll see if it's Alvano. It'll come down to probably if that injury is going to heal in time. Colorado's 82 players in the roster. How can they have so few players this day of college football? Well, that's more than they had when I had checked a few months ago, and they had 72 scholarship players. So no depth, not a lot of depth on that team. Yeah. So that was one of the biggest things that I was talking about, this entire offseason, just our lack of depth. Who's going to step up and take punt returns? Believe it, like Tommy Hill's another guy who can get, but I don't necessarily know if they want Tommy back there, but he was our top, returner last year. You want to keep him healthy. So I don't think they necessarily want him on punt return kick returns, but yeah, there's a few guys out there that we're probably going to see. We're probably going to see multiple guys out there and just kind of see who clicks the best. IGC gives me Oliver Mart 2.0 at punt returns, love him, but it's a fair catch season. Yeah. You want to make sure we're securing these, and then so the 4 guys. Sorry, I'm trying to read this one too. The 4 guys in the mix for punt returning: IGC, Barney, Sierra Wright, Emmett. Sierra Wright's an interesting one because Sierra Wright is an athlete. Like, he is an athlete in every sense of the word. Super talented, super athletic. He just had his attention spread out between acting and the other stuff. Now that he's fully locked into football, it's going to be very interesting to see what he can do. He had a big day at the open practice as well. Interception out there, made plays all day. So Sierra Wright's a guy I love. And hopefully, he's ready by the time the season comes around. We still have yet to get an update on Bly Hill. So hopefully, I looked at the Sony, but with 3 cannons, 2 50mm f1.8 lenses, one form 16mm f2.8. Totally nerding out right now. Yeah, sorry guys for the about the cameras and stuff like that, but it's a discussion we got to have. So probably going to be IGC, but those 4 are the ones that are practicing punt return weekend to camp. I would probably venture to guess that the guy with the most experience, IGC, is going to be the guy, and that bulk is really going to help him, be able to take, some of those hits on the punt returns, and be able to kind of go out there and be a guy who can go out there and stay healthy, and not only that, but have the strength to be able to, another thing that requires strength is, you being out there, being shifty, but also being able to hold on to the football. You got to know how to do that. IGC has been through, his offseason. He's battled through injuries. I think IGC is one of those guys that has this built up, the mental strength. And I think he's going to be a guy who doesn't go out there and think about it too much. I think he's going to be a guy who is he's battle tested, battle hardened. I don't think if he makes a mistake out there, he's going to let it carry over into his next rep. And I think that's the most important thing about putting a guy like IGC out there, is his mentality going through, the injuries and what he's gone through and stuff like that. And, I just think he's going to be the guy who's going to be able to have a short memory and be able to get out there. And if he makes a mistake on one punt return, get out there the next play and make up for it. You can't worry about the last rep, just get to your next rep. And I think he's the perfect guy for that. So, but as the season goes along, we're going to see them rotating through there. I wouldn't, with him being a 4 or 5 spot wide receiver and being kind of small. He bulked up. He's bigger now. Kick only. Are you talking about Colorado? They have 105 on the roster, but like 82 on scholarship. Yeah, it was scholarship players, but they are way under in scholarship players compared to where everybody was at earlier this offseason, and they've just kind of patchworked that together as the offseasons went along. And I just, especially with an offensive line, defensive line, kind of like I was talking about earlier, with those 2 position groups being a unit more than any other position group on the field, the camaraderie and knowing how the guy next to you operates and knowing how the guy behind you operates. Like, there's certain things about being a unit and trusting the guy next to you and having been through the trenches with these guys that really makes an offensive line work. And the unit is the biggest thing. Unity is the biggest thing. You can't bring in 5 guys, patchwork a line together and expect it to work. That's just not how this works. Kind of like Nebraska did. You have some experienced guys, but you bring in a guy like a Micah Mazuka, who can come in and he can bolster your line, but it isn't completely replacing your line. And that, to me, is the difference between offensive line and defensive lines that are built through the portal versus built through experience and development, like we have been. Like ESPN is Ross was scum. I just read it as scum. Like, I hate to call it scum, but and us. But I mean, I actually don't hate to do it. I just hate to do it on the show because I'm trying to put my analysis hat on. Be nice. And us, they have 82. We have we had 152. Yeah, yeah. Um, we have been over on scholarships and players all offseason. But again, Matt Rule kind of learning the ins and outs of how to deal with the roster management, especially with the new rule, how he's going to manage that. But he said it's one of those things where he's going to do what he has to do. It's not something, I mean, not going to say, he said it's not something he's not had to deal with before. I mean, the changes and the differences, of course, in the numbers, but it's something he's going to be able to figure out for sure. Hope Shavers and McGahee see action a lot this year. They will. Shavers, especially, but I did a video breakdown on McGahee, and yeah, I am. I love what Willis McGahee brings to this team. Excited to see what he has, but I think we're all excited to see what Vincent Shavers brings. From all the good that we've heard about him. One of the worst kept secrets on the defense, but it's just because he's been showing out, performing all off season. So excited to see those guys step up, who are going to be the guys that from last year that stepped up. That we were like, oh, this is the name we haven't heard before. Who those guys are, because there's going to be one or two names that we don't expect that are going to pop up next year and that are going to perform and exceed expectations. That's going to be the fun part, is trying to figure out who those players are going to be. Well, I have gone over my time, which I don't mind. I appreciate y'all hanging out with me here with the chat. And then the stuff I talked about earlier that I didn't get to today, the PFF stuff, breaking down where they think Nebraska is going to be, et cetera, et cetera. I will do a video on that and diving into that, so y'all can kind of see where we stand on that. If I have my Phil Steele video where Phil Steele, Mark Rogers covered down, interviewed Phil Steele for the channel, and got Phil's take on why Nebraska is expected to improve. Talked about 75% of the time teams with double-digit turnovers improve year over year significantly. So if y'all want to go check that out, give you another idea of why to expect some optimism from Nebraska this coming season. But I appreciate everybody stopping in here as always. Wilson, I appreciate you jumping in, man. 25 days. Good show, Justin. I appreciate it. Wilson, thank you as always, man. Sean, 5 and 7. All right. Well, that's the optimism I love to see. Thanks, Justin. Great show. I appreciate it. Moonbot, thanks for stopping in here. Again, everybody, I appreciate you stopping in here. A lot of good stuff for y'all coming this season. So be sure to hit the notification bell. Stay tuned to all the latest and bringing you probably the latest breaking news, et cetera, et cetera. And going into the season, there's going to be a ton of content. Probably going to be posting content every day here, coming at least when the season starts. But coming into the season, it's going to be more and more kind of ramped up. Like I said, I have 2 channels. I have a Big Ten show as well. But so locking in on this one, have a lot of stuff going on this off season. But I got a ton of stuff coming up for y'all this season to make it a lot of fun for y'all, implementing a call-in show probably at some point and stuff like that. So stay tuned and make sure that y'all, check out the videos. And then next Tuesday, we'll see you same time, same place. If y'all do have a recommendation of maybe a different time or date that y'all think would be preferred, feel free after this video is done to leave it in the comments. Let me know what works best for everybody, because I do have the flexibility to move the show if there's an easier time that works for everybody out there. So be sure to do that as well. And yeah, I'll shut up now so y'all can get along with the rest of your Tuesday. So everybody have a great rest of your day and week, and I'll see you in the next video. Peace.